Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's Design Cinema. This is Feng Zhu speaking, and this is episode 49, Black and White Interiors. So before we get started, I just want to apologize real quick for some strange artifacts. This is we're now editing in Windows 7 64-bit, and it's having some conflicts with Camtasia 6's codec. So that's why you'll see some strange artifacts from time to time. So we probably need to upgrade Camtasia to the newest version for that codec to fix itself. But in the meantime, it's very minor, but you will notice sometimes as I scroll the screen, you will see these kind of weird graphics jump up and down. But anyways, let's jump into this to the video. So I'm going to be doing 3 paintings for this tutorial, all black and white, all values only. But before I start that, I want to get some line drawings down just to get the spatial awareness. Now this approach is up to how you like to work. For me, I have many approaches to a painting. Sometimes I start with a very precise and very tight line drawing. In other times, I start with values only. And what you're seeing here is an in-between, in which I'm starting a fairly, very loose sketch, but yet the perspective, the horizon, all that kind of stuff are all still in play, except it's only happening in my head. The tightness is not shown here, but the spatial awareness is. But that doesn't mean this drawing is very loose and sloppy. It is actually controlled. So I'm doing 3 scenes here, going from a close-up interior to another interior to one that's a little bit further out of a bar scene. All 3 are linked together with the same design theme. And the setup for 3, actually, these are more storytelling or story progression type of production paintings, in which you are telling, if you're working with a director, for example, a sequence of events that is happening, or events that's happening within a film or a video game. So not only are you designing a set, but you're also kind of telling a little bit of the interaction or the story point that's happening. So right now you're seeing the third one being drawn, and this is a bar scene. The first one is a guy's room. The second one is a kind of like a CEO's office with a guy sitting with a big sculpture or painting behind him. The typical kind of power guy. And the third one is a kind of one of those sci-fi bars where people meet up. The basis for these 3 paintings actually are based very loosely on a book called what's it called? Perdido Street Station, written by Charna Midville, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's a very cool book. If you read it, you'll probably fall in love with the book by the first paragraph. It is, I believe, he's classified as a weird sci-fi writer or something. I mean, not weird as himself, but the theme is very bizarre. For me, I like it a lot. It's for Perdido Street Station. It has to do with these kind of humanoid insects living in a very bizarre city. So you guys could Wikipedia and check it out. But it's a very good book. I actually read it about 10 years ago. So right now I'm just kind of painting very loosely from what I can remember from the book. And the author has many other books since then as well, and they're all very good. So anyways, let's go back to this. So you can see now I'm just blocking the values. The line drawing is actually gone. The initial rough sketch is still in my head because all this in real time, I'm only about 10 minutes in real time for this painting right now. So I still remember all the line drawings, so I'm kind of just loosely laying in the values. At this point, the most important thing is the values, the initial lighting, the initial setup, versus going to details and painting in a head or painting all the little character stuff. Doesn't matter. It's about the bigger picture. Because once you capture that, we could always go back and detail the crap out of this painting, depending on how much time you got. So in this case, since we are producing 3 paintings in a very limited time, I want to knock these things out as quickly as possible in terms of overall structure, overall values, and overall shot design. So here you can see it's interior shot. All 3, by the way, are interiors. That's what you guys are being requesting. And so the setup here is that we're kind of very close to a table, to our bottom left corner. And this room belongs to a guy who's kind of working or constructing a artificial wing. So again, I'm going to explain a little bit about the design behind this, since we are doing a story sequence production painting. So the way I want to set this up is kind of structured. It's not totally random in terms of how I set the shot. This is pretty much like when a director or a DP, a DP is director of photography, set up their shots, right? They want to plan it to help with the story. Because at the end of the day, a film or video game is there to tell a story, especially a movie. So your sets have to, at least you try to help enhance the story as much as you can. So let's go back to the set here. So this is a inventor's room, or a guy who's making a set of fake wings, because I think in the book his girlfriend lost her wings or something. Remember the insect thing? So she can't fly, so he is trying to get a new wing. Now in the book, I believe he's getting the wing from an existing insect. In my painting, I'm going to try to make it from artificial sources. So what I want to do is I want to set up a shot in which he tells that story without even explaining to the viewer what is happening verbally. And you might have seen some of this stuff in films in which the camera might do a slow pan across some guy's room, and you see some picture frames on the shelves, and you see the guy like fishing, and then another picture of him like maybe used to be in the army or something. So what that does, it establishes the background without wasting too much time within the film context. That way you could leave the dialogue and all that for later. And this kind of stuff, so just in case this guy shows up later with a gun and starts shooting, you go, oh yeah, I remember in the opening of the film, this guy used to be in the special forces or something. So same thing here. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to establish a workman's table, right, sort of the center left of the shot, and that's where the subject matter of the fake wing is going to be placed. And then to the far bottom left corner of this shot, I'm going to place some books. And on this books, I'm going to name something called flight, or something that gives the image of flight. So you know that, okay, this guy is dealing with something that flies. This is a workshop. This guy's building wings. He's doing something. So that way the audience, you could do all that without using verbal words to waste time on the set, on the scene, that is. So since this is a workshop, I'm designing it out to have a little central focus with two beams framing the workbench. Also think about lighting. I'm gonna make the left side of this shot darker, lit by artificial light from the workbench, and then I'm gonna open up the shot on the right with a real lighting from the city below. So Perdido Street Station's got wonderful descriptions within the book. It's a very messy, very dirty, very smelly looking city. Again, read the first paragraph, you will fall in love with this book. It is very, very visually descriptive. So I'm trying to just remember all that kind of stuff in my mind here. So here I'm laying in the initial artificial wing that this guy is building in his workshop. So I've kind of constructed similar to a moth wing. Kind of not necessarily a bird wing with a feather. So because I do want to keep this insectoid-like, a bird wing would not fit in this world per se, since everybody is sort of a bug creature. So here I'm using a little bit of perspective to construct this out. So for this shot, this will be the central focus of this frame here, this wing and this workbench. Everything else will be complementary to the shot to help it, but the focal area is that wing and the table and the chair. So I want to create as much contrast as I can in that area, and I think using artificial light for this shot will help a lot. It also gives it a little bit of an intimacy feel, I believe. So this guy's kind of alone in his shop, he's working on his stuff. You can see here I'm laying in on the left side some of the books, and later I will put the details to describe what those books are. Right. So like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of that same thing in the film. You see a guy, fishing, right? And then later in the movie, he's on a boat and he knows how to fish. And then you're like, as an audience, you're like, how come he knows how to fish? We go, oh yeah, I remember there's a photo of him fishing and stuff. So you see that in various films. One that comes in mind was I think what film was that? I think the Tom Hanks film where he's stuck on an island, Castaway, right? In the beginning of the movie, they actually revealed him to be a fisherman and stuff like that. I believe that's why he's able to survive on the island and catch fish and all that kind of stuff. I think. But anyways, same kind of stuff. So we're moving on to shot number 2 now. So this is the CEO's office. I believe in the book there was a bad guy. Again, it's 10, 12 years ago since I read it, so this is very, very, very loosely based. So I'm just trying to make the kind of the standard mobster boss or the standard CEO office in which the guy has a huge desk, and to make him bigger than life, right? This guy's a CEO. He's full of power. I want to make the shot a little bit dynamic. So the first shot you can see is a standard shot, standard camera. There's no flare on the perspective or the lens. On the second shot here, because I want to show this guy as a powerful guy, I'm going to put the lens lower on the floor and shoot upwards to give this guy a sense of power. And he's bigger than you. He's above you, right? So this camera is almost placed at floor level, and we're looking up. So you're going to get quite a bit of distortion on the camera on the left and right side of the lens. There was some distortion, by the way. Those are the kind of things I was talking about with the whole Camtasia stuff. Anyway, so again, laying in the values, you can see the desk being the central contrast in this shot. And the way to frame him, because the CEO, you can see right now, he's sitting in the middle, this black blob. He's going to be the central part of the shot. I have to plan out how to light him. So right now I have lighting, natural lighting from the left and the right framing the center. So to light him up, because he's such high contrast shape, he's purely black right at this point, or dark gray, I'm going to put an artificial horizon light behind him, almost similar to a bar or something like that. And I think if this is a cinematic shot for a film or video game, the way I'll design the bottles behind him will be a similar silhouette to that of the city outside. I think I'll play up a kind of interesting shot design and a little bit of metaphor for what this guy does. Do you know what I'm saying? Like his background is full of drinks and all that kind of stuff, but yet it's also a metaphor for the city and the messiness that's behind it. So hopefully, I don't know, that's maybe getting a little too crazy up there, but I do like to plan those things out. And sometimes your audience might never sense those kind of things, but it helps to kind of put some of that stuff in your designs. So here I'm flipping the shot just to check it, because composition, flip left or right or upside down or whatever you want to do with it, it should always work, because perspective doesn't care about orientation, right? So this room, just like you take a room and flip it upside down, it's still a room. Do you know what I'm saying? So anyway, so I'm locking that stuff in. I also want to give the table 2 lights. I think that'll help frame our shot. So there's the left and the right light on the table itself, and I think here I'm gonna lay in the beginning light of behind him to frame him out, right? Because right now, if I just leave him right there, he's not very powerful. You just see a guy sitting there. He's going to be in the shadow. There's nothing really contrasting him, so I must put a light source behind him. Now, it's not always the case, right? I'm designing this for the shot, for storytelling reasons, because I can see this guy being kind of dark, and when the camera focuses on him, the background of him is going to be kind of blocked out in this kind of blowout lighting, and he's going to be kind of silhouetted in there, kind of murky, kind of blurry. So that, I think that'll make a nice shot design. So, and that puts him in a kind of a foreshadowing that this guy is not good, right? Because he's kind of light behind him and he's darkness within the light, all that kind of craziness that you get from novels and these kind of things that describes sinister characters in that way. So, if he was a good guy, for example, I would not light this set this way, nor design the set this way. So this is all designing towards storytelling. So these kind of things you tend to do quite a bit on both movies and games, depending on what you're doing, especially if you're doing video game cinematics. In fact, speaking of cinematics, the guy who made me read this book was Tim Miller over at Blur Studio. So they do a lot of video game cinematics, and these are kind of the typical shots they do at those kind of studios because they have to tell a story within, say, 2 to 3 minutes. So this is kind of the example of what happens over there. So yeah, Tim introduced me to this book, Perdido Street Station. So you guys should definitely check it out as well, especially if you like crazy, funky sci-fi. This book will definitely feed your need. It is very, very cool. So, okay, let's go back to this painting. So here we're still blocking stuff in. This is a foreground element on the left, another beam. Speaking of architecture, I didn't want this world to have a human, ish kind of structure. I want to have a slight alien look to it, but yet at the same time, we do want to cater to the ideas or the design ideas that humans understand. Because when you try to be too different, your audience ain't gonna buy it. So a street is still a street, a window is still a window, but how you design it, how you frame it, could be different. So in this case, the architecture beams are kind of made out of these interlocking shapes, almost like pipes or something. But I could see them as hard forms, like rectangles or something that's going in and out of each other, just kind of a designed pass. Okay, and that stuff is kind of secondary to the overall shot. Those things could change over time. The point of these shots is to get the lighting, get the value in, get the overall camera in, get the mood right, get the shot design correctly. And from that point on, if the shot is approved, the animatic team could go to work. They could start setting up the shot, framing it, timing it. In the meantime, the next phase, so that this drawing here or painting will go to the concept guy. It could be the same guy, it could be me, or someone on the team, and they can now flush the design with a much tighter drawing or painting, or continue painting on this one and just flesh out design. So the important thing here is to get these shots done really, really quick and get it into production, or get it into the production side, right? Because right now we are in post-production. No, we're in pre-production, sorry, right? This is pre-production, and we try to rush the pre-production as fast as we can, get the stuff into production. So that way they have some stuff to do. They could start planning out the budget, the shot design, the effects they're going to need, all that kind of stuff. And that's sort of the purpose of this shot. And once that stuff is approved, then this could bounce back to pre-production for you to flush out the design. So hopefully that made a little sense. Sorry, a little rushed right there. So yeah, so concept guys, we work in pre-production. 3D guys, the effects guys, the compositors, the DPs, all those guys, that's all production side, right? And the post-production are your special effects guys, laying in the explosions and the composite and all those crazy stuff that you put later. So anyways, let's go back to the shot. So you can see the light beam. I have structure behind the Mr. CEO there, who's also going to be a bug. At this point, actually, I haven't decided what to put behind him. So at the first pass, I actually wanted to put a painting, but I eventually decided to put another wing there, a bigger wing than the guy who's building the workshop, because maybe the one he has behind him is very, very expensive, and the guy doesn't have the kind of money to buy what this guy has. The typical CEO has everything, but yet he doesn't want to give it to the guy asking for it or something like that. So that kind of helps build the characters for this evil CEO here. Let's talk about technical aspects. Because this painting is done in black and white, I'm actually working in black and white. That'll actually make your files much, much smaller. If I was working in RGB, but RGB black and white, this file is about 400 megs. But if you take it to black and white only, it's only about 200. So you're saving about half the space there. So there's no need for color if you're working strictly in black and white. So very quick. But you will lose certain controls. Certain controls will not show up in Photoshop, like I think like hue saturation, for example, because there's no point, right? But hue saturation has the light and darkness, so you have to use level adjust to carry that out instead of using a hue saturation. Those menus just will not show up on a black and white image, but it's worth it if you do want to speed everything up and have a smaller file size. Here I'm working on the bar, so exact same thing as the first two, blocking in the values, blocking in all the major forms, blocking in the major light sources, ignoring details, ignoring all those kind of things, right? Just get the major stuff in. So back to the technical side, these three paintings together in real time, if you minus the saving of Camtasia, took about, I say about 2 hours. So quite a bit of time, 2 hours and a half, 2.5 hours actually, not to think about it. Yes, somewhere around there. So it's about what? That's about 40 minutes per painting, something like that, right? So it's still relatively quick in terms of an art department time scale. I did work on this on and off, through about 2 days because of the kind of have other stuff doing. So if you're working this full time in an art department, you could get all this done pretty much in the morning time, right? And that's the point of these paintings, right? If you're taking forever doing a comp painting, that sort of defeats the purpose of a comp painting. You can't spend 3 days doing a comp. The whole point is to get it done, within an hour, 2 hours, or something like that, right? So production is, quite different. Production is a high stress, high pressure, very tight deadline type of world. So for those of you who are watching, you want to get into this business, you probably heard me mention many times how time is a very, very important factor. And it actually is. Time is money in this business. In this business, your painting does not make any money, right? For the clients, it's useless in terms of selling a product, right? They only can make money if the film or the video game gets made. And that means everyone in the production pipeline is trying to do their best and get that product out as soon as they can, in the best quality they can. So time is always a factor in almost all studios, right? Which is very different than art, right? Because I could be say I'm an illustrator or artist. If I spend a whole year painting one painting, you know what I'm saying? Which is pretty slow, but that's how a lot of illustrators, especially back in the days, like you look at Leonardo da Vinci and these guys, sometimes they spend like 3-4 years doing a single painting. Sometimes 50 years, using their apprentice and stuff. But the thing is, at the end of the day, if you could sell that and make a great living doing it, who cares? Do you know what I'm saying? So if I spend 1 year doing a painting and I sell it for like $10 million, then who cares if I spend a whole year on it? But it doesn't work the same way in production because they're not buying your art at all. They don't care about your art. These three paintings here, you could throw them away at the end of the production. They're worthless in terms of their monetary value. Their value comes from the end product. If this is in a film or whatever, that's when the exchange of money comes through for the clients. So for them, they only benefit if this thing moves on to the next stage and keeps on moving down the stage until it sits in the movie theater or in some guy's a video game console. Do you know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, why time is such an important thing in terms of, even though it looks like drawing that we're doing here, it's not. We're doing a painting, yes, but it's painting for a very different purpose than art, right? There's nothing to really do with art. We're just using the art side purely for communication. So, okay, let's go back to this painting. So this one kind of knocked this stuff out. For the three paintings, the one that took the most time was actually the CEO one. So generally when dealing with interiors, it's always a little harder because anything in which you are zooming in, the more zoomed in you are, the more time it's going to take to finish it. The reason for that is because when you're further out, little details never show up. For example, if you're painting a mountain landscape or something like that with a castle on it, the way the door looks, the way each rock looks, it doesn't really matter. It could just indicate everything because you're never at a human scale with these objects. Everything's sort of far away. So minute mistakes like a small perspective mistake or a small mistake on a rendering doesn't really show up because as a whole, those things tend to work. Now, when you're zooming in on a shot like this bar scene here, if you mess up on some perspective or mess up on some detail, it's going to show up a lot greater than a far away shot. And this is why, a lot of the tutorials you see me doing to speed up time, a lot of it are kind of vista shots, the establishing shots in which you're far away, you're looking at some giant city from, 2 or 3 miles away, observing it. And those shots are very, not easy, but they're much faster to complete than these zoomed in shots. The CEO shot took a while because that's the closest shot for all three of these, you see, because you have a table and a guy, and that is the focal point. It's actually closer to camera than the shot above it here, right? The workbench with the wing on it. So you have to spend a little bit more time flushing all the detail out, correcting small mistakes and stuff to make sure that it doesn't look too rushed. Okay, so this bar shot here, you can see I'm doing some artificial lighting. So the setup for this one, since I talked about the lighting for all three, this one here, I want to keep the light on a centralized horizon to emulate a artificial horizon line, because typically on during the day, or maybe say about 5, 6 o'clock, the horizon gets quite bright and it looks quite nice. You get that magic hour, and it's very sci-fi type of lighting as well, the kind of lit horizon. So for the bar scene, even though that's all lit by bar lights, I want to create a bar going straight down the middle of the shot, like a horizon. So just a shot design choice there. Okay, so at this point now, I'm gonna go through and add some detail to all three of these one at a time. So you see me complete these. Now I'm gonna skip a bunch of stuff. About an hour in real time, I skipped. That's the point in which I finished these paintings to a much presentable level. So you're watching me going to about in real time about an hour and a half into all three paintings, and then I kind of paused Camtasia for about an hour to do the final cleanup. Because as you res up these kind of things, Camtasia tends to slow my Photoshop down very, very, very badly, in which files take forever to save. Because at this point, the resolution of this image is about 9,000 pixels across and 12,000 pixels high. So if your computer is not powerful, you don't need to keep all three paintings at the same time. You could just separate them out into three individual paintings. Therefore, it'll probably make 9,000 wide and about maybe 3,000 high, or maybe 4,000 high, somewhere around there. Right, much smaller file. So the 12,000 is killing this file. That's a lot of stuff to keep in RAM. Anyway, so here I'm starting to add details, and let's start with the wing area. This is the workbench. This is the selling point. This is where you want the audience to see. So here I am laying in the details. Okay. So I do want to mention that this kind of painting with these black and white stuff are starting to touch upon fundamentals, which is something we focus heavily at the school. So there are stuff I'm actually not talking about in great details at this point, because that is something we do save for our students. Now, I'm not doing that to kind of tease you guys and try to purposely leave stuff out. It's because fundamentals take a long time to explain. So in a 25-minute YouTube video, you cannot possibly explain what kind of lens we're using, why we choose this kind of lighting, why we choose a certain kind of shot, what kind of vanishing points are we using. Those are things that take 6 months to explain in our school in real time. Do you know what I'm saying? So every day our students are learning about those kind of things you guys are seeing fast forward here. So there are some stuff I'm skipping simply because it just makes no sense to cover it in a very short video. But hopefully this does give you a sort of an insight of how these paintings are generally made, at least one of the ways these paintings are made. Okay. So, for me, this kind of value painting straight from raw, white background, no line drawing, is something I do for these kind of blue sky paintings, for these kind of quick storyboard type paintings. If I wanted something in which the client has already approved it, for example, you're doing a set and you have drawn some drawings, and now they take this drawing and make it into this angle and do this shot. In that case, I probably will start with a relatively, semi-controlled line drawing, versus in this case, the line drawing was, at least to you guys, looks very, very crappy, right? Because I knew the line drawing wasn't going to be in the painting anyways. So here, let's go back to the painting now. On the left side here, you'll see me blocking in those paper kind of blueprints and stuff. So this again has to do with storytelling. So you can almost imagine the camera sort of panning in from the left across this table, and it's staying in focus on the objects on the table. You can see like the flight magazine, some blueprints. So here I'm zooming in, you can see. So the audience already understands, oh, I see, this, whatever we're at, we're in a place in which somebody is studying flight. Right, so it's good. And then as the camera continues to pan towards the right, the camera is now lose focus on the foreground, bring the focus back into the midground in which that work table is there, and maybe we'll punch in or something like that. And now that's going to reveal, oh, I see, this is an inventor's guy's room, and this is the thing he's working on, and whatever that thing is, it probably is to do something with flight. So it helps to tell the story without some guy coming in the room and go, oh yeah, this is an office dealing with flight, because that is kind of dumbs the shot down and it wastes time on a scene. So this is what I mean by designing a shot for storytelling purposes versus purely designing a design shot. So this shot, for example, could look exactly like this in the cinematic. The camera could actually match this as well. So once this design, and if they do use this shot, then the 3D guys might not necessarily have to build everything to the left nor the right. You just build exactly what you see. So these are almost like combining storyboards and final production into a single shot here, right? And for some studios, this might be good enough. Especially if you have a fairly long cinematic to do. Say you got a 2-minute shot. That's a pretty long cinematic for production. So you might have to end up doing, say, 30 or 40 of these kind of paintings. So you don't have the time to go back and clean them up. But this is definitely enough to support the 3D artists. In general, though, I don't do these in black and white. I'll probably do these in color. But black and white is very helpful because it is value division. So therefore, the 3D artist can match your values in their black and white as well. And if you don't have time, you could always show a color palette from something else. For example, you could take a photo that you're taking in maybe some church in Europe or something, and go, okay, use this color palette, but with this value set, right? So you can actually combine the two. And if you're working with very good 3D artists, they'll know exactly what to do because they're going to extract the colors anyways from the photos. Okay, so continue detail here. I'm adding those wall things. I think that one carried far enough. So now let's move on to the CEO guy. So this is the one that took the most time. So I'll also start with the focal point. In this case, is the Mr. Mean Bug CEO guy, or whatever, sitting there. So I'll kind of detail him out. All right. So this painting will have a loose factor and a tight factor. The tight factor being the subject matters themselves. Right? So here I'm still deciding. I actually wanted to put the antennas back, the little antennas on his head. I took it out at this point because I knew I was going to paint stuff into the background. So if I had little antennas there, they're actually getting in my way as I paint. But I forgot to put it back when I finished this painting. So maybe I'll put it back later. Okay, and his desk, I want the desk to be almost a personified version of him, which is always kind of fun. You know, like these CEO guys always have like something in their office that is a personification of themselves. Like, you know, they have like sharks or something, or some kind of tiger or a lion, some kind of predator type thing. So in this case, I'm actually putting like a face of himself, like kind of like a Art Nouveau version of a bug or something like that. So you can see the eyes, the front head, and the wings coming out to the left and right. So because, you know, these guys are huge egos, and these guys, you know, they're all about power and control and domination and stuff like that. So they're definitely not shy about having their own personification being in the office here. So, and that's what this desk was for. So when we walk in, it's like this, you know, intimidating thing. And it also helps with lighting. You know, put the camera low, you kind of see two faces. You see a big face that's mean from the desk, and you see the CEO guy kind of staring down with his arm on the table, all mean and stuff like that. Okay. And because we're so close in, this is why the time factor is being not wasted, but most time was spent on this painting here, just getting the perspective right. And also we have in this shot, there's a camera flare on the left and the right. It's kind of like a warm eye view of the of camera, I guess, is the common term. So the perspective is pinching on the left and the right. Because it's pinching, I cannot hold a shift to go up and down. Because whenever I'm doing a vertical 90-degree line, if you hold shift in Photoshop, you make a 90-degree line going up or going horizontally across. But because the screen is tilted on the left and right, I have to do all those lines freehand. So there is a thing where you could press the button, I press the brush, hold shift and press the brush again, it'll make a line. But I don't use that feature at all because you have to press really hard for the line to come out, or you have to set your brush to have no sensitivity, in which you get a line that doesn't have any kind of acceleration, and that doesn't look natural as a painting, so I don't use that. Okay, so in this painting here, you can see I blocked in some of the bottles in the background, like all this weird alcohol and drinks and stuff like that, in a way that it simulates the silhouette. So in color, if this was in color, I'll probably suggest something that, for example, that contrasts the environment. So maybe the background is kind of a sickly yellow, or a green yellow towards the bottom, maybe a bluish hue on the top. And then for the bar area behind the Mr. CEO here, I'll probably use that as red, or some kind of sick orange red, to kind of complement the colors on the outside, at the same time tell a story. You know, it's like the city under him is going to turn into this bloody death thing or whatever. So a little bit of foreshadowing, you know. And most of your audience probably never pick that up, but I think internally, subliminally, yeah, maybe it'll sink in. So I like to do those things on shot designs. So just a little hint, because you do read that a lot from, especially your classic novels. You know, you read like, Tale of Two Cities and these type of classic books, like Frankenstein and stuff like that. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. I remember very clearly, like in Crime and Punishment, that book, very classic book there. I think anytime there's someone sick or someone who's not good, the scene is always some kind of yellow color or yellow light or something, right? Because they're trying to use that color to signal sickness. So same kind of thing. So except here we're doing it with visuals. So, but that is important, remember, because I'm talking about at the end of the day, this here is a shot in a cinematic or a film. So you're trying to do as much as possible to tell the story. And if this is really working, and then your actor's doing a good job, your animators or whatever you're doing to make the shot come alive is doing a good job. When you combine all that together, you're gonna have a product that feels very, very professional. And at that point, the audience is not gonna look at your shot and go, "Oh, this is a fantastic CG shot," or something. They're gonna be in the story. They're gonna be caring about the characters, right? The least thing you want them to notice is actually, "Oh, that effect shot is great," or "Oh, that music was awesome," or this part here with the lens flare or whatever is good. You don't want them to notice that. You want the audience to absorb that stuff, almost like osmosis or something. They don't have to do anything. It just goes in, and that's generally a good sign of a good cinematic or a film in which you're feeling the characters out without actually having to pay attention to the little things. Right? Everything is kind of working as one. So. Right? Isn't that what compositors say? Music composers, right? They say the best music is the one that you didn't hear but you felt. Same kind of stuff, you know. So because if you're paying attention too much to something, that thing is probably not done too correctly. Here on the left side there, I put a little sculpture of a, in CEOs, they always have these kind of expensive sculptures in their offices. So I put an insect there as well on the, you can see in the lower left corner on the desk. So all those things will help tell the background story of him. So like this guy, you could tell he likes power, he drinks a lot, and he collects insect sculptures. Okay, so now we're moving on to the bar scene. This scene is a very massive bar. This is definitely bigger than your typical bars in the cities. I do want to make this just huge thing because we are talking about an insect-like colony here, where these people behave sort of like bugs. So I want this place to be almost like a hive. So imagine you the first time as a observer, viewer. The cameraman's maybe following you in, and you're gonna go through a door, and suddenly the door is gonna open, and boom, reveals this grand opening. Maybe you come through a very small hallway, and there's a massive opening with thousands and thousands of these kind of bug creatures. Everyone's moving about. There's a lot of smoke. There's lights. There's a lot of noise. There's like the sounds of bottles and drinks being hit, glass breaking in the distance, just noise and craziness. And that's sort of what I'm going for this shot here, of just this massive sensory overload, right? So I actually wanted to design a little bit more into this shot, but just kind of ran out of time, I guess, in the end, because I want to dangle stuff on the ceiling, like crazy weird light structures and stuff. But I have to finish this painting for you guys, actually. So the deadline here is today, so I have to really rush to finish. So. Anyways, but it turned out okay, I guess, for design, but it definitely could use a CBB or could be better kind of pass. So here the ceiling here is just funky bug insectoid weird because I don't want to keep it so it looks like these guys are using like traditional tools to build these. Maybe they're excreting these from their mouth or something. Who knows how they're building these kind of things? So your architectures tend to be a little bit funkier than what we find here on Earth. There's the bartender there, Mr. Dude, with kind of two round eyes. You notice I don't zoom in too much for these. All that is because I don't want to focus on details. I'm painting these almost at 50%, so you can zoom in twice and get to 100. So these are 50% viewing at this point. And I tend never to really zoom in until I'm doing the final production paintings, or we have to finish these guys off to a much higher degree, then I'll zoom in. So in the 1 hour that I'm skipping on this video, I do actually zoom in sometimes to do some of the bug guys and some of the minor details. But at this point, I don't care about the tiny details. So there's a guy there. You can see the one I'm painting right now. He's holding to some female bug, I guess, to his right there. His hands going across her shoulders. And these are insect guys, so he's actually ended up giving him like 2 other arms. You know what I'm saying? So he can hold on the shoulders, and another one on her back. Here's our leading actor. So this guy on the right here is our lead-in. So if this is a shot, that guy will probably walk across the screen from right to left. The camera will follow him first. So you just see a guy kind of in focus in the shot. He's blocking majority of the shot. And as he walks from right to left, the camera will lose him and then focus into the bar instead. So that's my lead character. He's not the main character. He's nothing. He's just a element to lead the camera into the shot. So he's sort of there serving that purpose. Okay, and maybe that guy will lead us into the 2 guys on the left talking on the table, right? So you kind of see that in a lot of films like Stuart Little and whatever. Just trying to top of my head, like they'll show like a little rat or something running around the ground. The camera's following that, and the rat will then take a sudden turn to the left. The camera will go straight, revealing the living room or something like that. So these are just leading characters. Here are the 2 guys on the left side sharing, talking some secret stuff on the table, making a drug deal or something. Something is not good. This bar here is not meant to be a good bar in terms of this is a place where the sophisticated and the smart people hang out. This is more of a seedy underground type bar where the weapon deals are going down and that type of stuff. So I try to light it very very dim, very crowded. And it's not super happy. Flipping the shot is also, I think I did it earlier for the other shots as well. Flipping the shot just to kind of, sometimes you flip it just to work in a mirror state, because you basically see everything completely different, right, when you flip it. But at the same time, you notice mistakes when you flip the shots. Okay. This guy I'm actually starting to paint quite a detail at this point. So pretty soon I'm actually going to stop the video. At this point, the Camtasia is really starting to crawl in real time. So that's when I stop the video and continue painting in real time without the recording going on. Okay. So right now, still a lot of focus on fog, a lot of value separation. When you're working in black and white, it's actually sometimes more challenging because you cannot depend on color to pull the attention. For example, in some of the maybe color paintings you see, I like to use red or some kind of strong color to pull the viewer's attention. You see that in a lot of classical paintings, like your master paintings from the 1400s and these kind of long time ago paintings. You'll see that they use red a lot to pull the viewer. Like a guy will have a red cape. The red cape will lead into a guy wearing a red cap, and then if you further go across the canvas, you'll see some horse with a red tail or something like that. They use the red to kind of drag it across the canvas, so it's very, very effective. Now in black and white, you have no such luxury. There is nothing to draw them except for values. So you really have to plan out your shots ahead of time of where do you want to light this thing, how do you want to light it, what's your subject matter, and is the lighting going to light your subject, right? So one of the best way to think about this is to just pretend you're a DP. You are the director of photography, and you're showing you show up with set with 50 of your dudes that's gonna light up your set. These union guys, whatever, and they're all staring at you, asking you, okay, boss, where do I put all these lights? Treat your scenes that way. So pretend this is just a Hollywood set that's completely flat. You show up, it's terrible, it's all lit up daytime. There's nothing spectacular, and your job is to now place lights around this scene to give you the best result for the shot, for the story, right? So for a city bar, how would you light a bar that's not good, right? And you have all this high-tech equipment at your disposal. Well, you got to start one light bulb at a time, right? So you're going to tell your guys to go back and light up the horizon. Now you're going to tell some guys to hang some lights in the ceiling to give you some maybe some blue ambience coming from the top. And then you tell some guys to put up some lights on the bottom to give some maybe red ambience coming from the bottom or orange ambience coming from the bottom. And then maybe some cyan or some kind of off blue for the bar areas. And those are going to be your key lights, very, very strong. So you're going to tell your guys to do that. So you put all those elements in and treat it as a real physical set and think of it that way. Like, you're going to use this light, use this light, use that light, whatever. And as you paint, it actually helps quite a bit. Okay, so here I'm actually going to lay in the finished painting. I'll show you guys real quickly here. So I'm showing you before and then after. Sorry for the artifacts in this place. This is when Camtasia starts to really freak out here. So, but I'm going to show you guys a little bit before and after of these shots. So you can see this is sort of before you touch things up, what it looked like. Okay, and then I'm going to overlay the finished result on top. Here, this is the more finished result. You can see much tighter here. I clean up the workbench a little bit more. You can see I also hung some like little bugs and stuff above the workbench to further enhance the kind of storytelling, put in more background for the city back there as well. So this painting, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's almost coming to an end here. You could go to my blog, fengzuidesign.blogspot.com, and grab a high-res version of this shot here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I have no idea what I'm gonna do next week, but whatever I do, I'll see you guys next week. And thanks for watching, and see you next time. Okay, bye bye.